Just go away.
No, you go away.
The long-awaited Hell of a Boss Full Moon episode is here. This is an episode that's been a long time coming for the fans, especially the Stolitz lovers. We'd been on hiatus for over 6 months and seen a bit of delays occur, but it's finally here. So was this episode able to deliver all the hype it seemed to be building up to behind the scenes? Honestly, in my opinion, not as best as it could have. To be clear, if you've been following my channel for even just a bit of time, you would know that talking about the more negative aspects for specific episodes of a cartoon or show in general is never really my style. Of course, I've done it in the past, but it's not something I do a lot. It's a once in a full moon type of thing. Thank you, I'll be here all week. Generally, I'm just not a very easy person to disappoint. I always try to, look for the positives and hope they outweigh the negatives when it comes to watching shows that I enjoy. And even with that being said, this episode isn't even one I consider bad or even mediocre. It's just one of those things where the execution could have been a lot better, considering this was being marketed as a Stolitz-focused episode so heavily on Twitter. The start of the episode is quite strong. We get a bit of an indirect duet song between both Blitz and Stolitz. This song sequence was extremely well done when it comes to conveying the different emotions these two have about each other and how they both view the relationship they have. Stolitz obviously has caught serious feelings for Blitz, despite being the one who wanted their relationship to be transactional / purely sexual at first. The more time he spent with Blitz, the more he'd begun to fall for him romantically. He's been struggling with these feelings severely since the end of season 1, and this song shows us how he's gotten to a point where he simply can't take it anymore, no longer wanting to sit back and pretend like things can keep going the way they once were. Stolitz is mentally preparing himself to either break it off with Blitz entirely, or see if Blitz is actually willing to take their relationship more seriously than just sex. While Blitz, on the other hand, sings his portion of the song with the same emotions he's had from the beginning. Blitz has had some internal struggles when it comes to his own self-worth or feeling undeserving of love from others for a while now, yet there hasn't been anything that's pushed him far enough over the edge yet to help him realize even someone like him is deserving of love if he just was able to tweak his mindset. So all he's been thinking about during this song is the usual sexcapades he wants to take Stolitz on. And by the time this song is over, we don't really see Stolitz for much of the rest of this episode until about the final 5 minutes or so, which is a bit concerning of itself, but I'll get there later. And once the song is over, we kind of just jump cut to the real world, where apparently some woman's baby was in danger of falling into a vat of acid. Luckily, the baby was saved by a bystander, and the hooded woman thanks him, while her baby steals the guy's wallet. Yeah, it wasn't actually a woman and a baby, it was the Cherubs in disguise. You know, the Angel Trio from season 1 who battled IMP for the life of Lyle Lipton. Seeing these guys appear in this episode completely took me off guard. If you watched the season 2 trailer from a month ago, we knew they were going to be returning at some point, forming an alliance with the Dorks agents to enact revenge on IMP, but the way the scenes with them were put together in the trailer had me thinking their plotline was going to be in a completely different episode from this one. To be honest, it really should have been its own episode, or at the very least done a better job at intertwining itself with the Stolitz side of things. So these guys have been living on the streets of Earth just trying to get by ever since being banished from heaven. They do anything they can to get back there, even if it means killing some demons. The Dorks agents end up seeing the angels out of their disguise and capture them for interrogation. But after finding out the two groups have a common enemy, the Dorks agents show the Cherubs what they can do to take IMP down. All the while, Blitz is wanting to go on a shopping spree for valuable sex toys to bring to Stolitz's place. Blitz had been feeling a bit guilty about not spending a whole lot of time with Stolitz lately. The only time they'd really been in each other's general vicinity this season was the Seeing Stars episode, but the exploration of their relationship wasn't really focused on here due to the main priority that time around being to bring Octavia back home to hell. So them not spending time together like that definitely checks out, and Blitz's worry about wanting to make this a fun experience for Stolitz is quite valid. So he goes off to the Lust Ring to buy some stuff. But as for the Dorks, after the whole situation from episode 6, the Dorks agents were able to get some crazy funding from the government to help fuel their demon hunting business, including but not limited to a working portal to hell and battle suits modeled after the IMP agents' bodies. So from here on out, the Cherubs just start tailing Blitz around town looking for an opportunity to strike, while simultaneously being disgusted by all the sex toys he's buying for Stolitz.
I think he's coming in. Oh God, what's that?
Dear God.
This sequence of events went on for way too long. The total length of this episode is about 22.5 minutes, not including the end credits, and it spent about 14 of those minutes on the Cherub revenge plotline. Don't get me wrong, I think the Cherubs are decent characters. They're a group of fallen angels who, unlike Vaggie, are doing everything they can think of to get their old jobs back, which is a solid concept in itself. This episode also kind of introduces a new dynamic that was developed between the trio. Episode 4, they all had pretty similar personalities, just really wanting Lyle Lipton to not give up on his life, whereas now now, Cletus and Keeney are a lot more unhinged, super ready to rip Blitz to pieces, whereas Colin is a lot more timid, sometimes questioning the validity of their actions, yet still going along with the plans anyway. My issue is this whole side plot felt extremely disconnected from the Stolitz side of things. It was just a bit jarring in a sense for this episode to open up with the Stolitz duet, then jump cut to Earth to see what the Cherubs are doing. It felt like two completely different episodes trying to take place in one 22-minute time slot. Hell of a Boss is obviously no stranger to having A and B plot lines in some episodes. They don't do them all the time. Some episodes will be entirely contained to one plot line, like X's and O's, while others like Oops or Unhappy Campers will switch between the POVs of different characters every now and then, showing the different shenanigans they get into. But the thing about those episodes in specific is they do a solid job at tying both plot lines together by the end of the episode. In Oops' case, despite some believing the pacing for the Blitz and Fizz reconciliation was too fast, the different POVs from those two with Ozzy and Stolas were directly connected. Blitz and Fizz were being held captive, and every now and then we got to see how their royal hubbies were needing to negotiate with Crimson's people to ensure their safety. Then by the time the episode concludes, we get a direct reunion between Oz and Fizzy. Hell, Oops even worked as a good form of setup for the Full Moons episode climax, which I'll get into in a bit. Unhappy Campers did a decent job at this too. I know some don't like that episode either, but the way Blitz was on his own mission to find Barbie, only for it to lead to the same camp the M&Ms were working at, where the guy they find was the one who got the client killed as well as someone working with Barbie directly, it's a solid payoff. The Cheryl plotline didn't really do itself justice in that regard at all. The group never really had any direct contact with Blitz, instead having to fight the other 3 IMP members while Blitz continued his way to Stolas' house. Action sequences here were nice though, you know me, I love when characters in the show get to fight, so my weird ass can do potential scaling videos in the future, but it felt like the IMP guys confronting them was incredibly abrupt with no kind of setup at all. Like, the only other times we saw these guys were in the IMP office. Luna was used for a joke to show Blitz how she's good at avoiding situations with people, while Moxie was stuck doing paperwork. Then we don't see them again until they directly counterattack the Cherubs. It felt very similar to the Luna vet scenes that occasionally played throughout the Western Energy episode, only those vet scenes didn't take up nearly as much time as the Cherub stuff. If there was more involvement or some semblance of setup for the M&Ms and Luna to confront the Cherubs prior to the big fight, then at least that would have made up for the whole thing a little bit more. Even by the time the Cherubs are defeated, it felt extremely abrupt. The way they just kicked them back through the portal, then it cuts away to Blitz's POV right after the dorks ask them how it went. The absolute best parts of the episode were during the final 5 minutes when Blitz actually gets to Stolas' house. By the way, both Brandon and Bryce's performances during this final section were absolutely insane. These guys really have some amazing chops. From the get-go, you can feel the weird vibes in the room. Despite Blitz not catching on at first, Stolas' initial silence is loud. Stolas tells Blitz he's no longer allowed to use the Grimoire anymore. However, Stolas does offer Blitz an Osmodian crystal, which of course functions the same way as Stolas' Grimoire. Only now Blitz will technically be answering to Ozzy now instead of Stolas. This is what I was talking about when mentioning how Oops did a good job at laying the groundwork for future events. The whole conversation between Stolas and Ozzy actually had payoff here. Plus, it just goes to show how much these feelings have been eating away at Stolas. Now that Blitz is no longer under any obligation to Stolas, Stolas tells him if he wants to continue their relationship, it should be because he wants to, and sex should no longer be the only priority. Blitz isn't even taking Stolas seriously at this point though, thinking the whole confession is just some kind of weird roleplay. This response was all Stolas needed to hear to break things off with Blitz completely. At this point, Blitz completely loses it, berating Stolas about his high society status and how people like him don't care for others at all, a mindset that was likely ingrained into him by his father, or he's just saying things he doesn't really mean to push away the ones who do try to care about him, or maybe a little bit of a mixture of both. Because again, he believes he's incapable of being loved. At this point, Stolas completely breaks at the thought of Blitz thinking so little of him, but before Blitz gets a chance to apologize, he's teleported outside Stolas' front door, where the episode concludes there. It's crazy how such a strong conclusion was able to come from such a rocky middle, yet they still did it. This breakup right here is the perfect way to set up the next episode apology tour, by the way. I was saying before how even though Blitz has dealt with internal struggles, none of them were quite enough to push him over the edge to work out a proper change in his mindset or worldviews. Well, Stolas breaking their relationships off seems like it's gonna be just the thing he needs to send him down a path of redemption, where I imagine he'll slowly work his way up the ladder to making amends with those he's done wrong. Verosika, potentially Barbie, and then maybe ending with Stolas. Based on the trailer, we do know Blitz and Stolas will reunite because Blitz was trying to protect Stolas from what looked like Andrelphus' ice powers, though I'd imagine that's going to happen in the Mastermind or Sinsmith episode. Hopefully those will be able to have more well-rounded structures than Full Moon did. It was an okay episode, it just sucks how all the best parts didn't take up the majority of the runtime. Perhaps my expectations for this episode were higher than they should have been, but with how much it was getting hyped up on Twitter, it was hard for me not to feel more excited than normal. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this episode. If you agree or disagree with any of the points I made here, just try to keep it civil. Don't be a stranger to leaving a like down below if you enjoyed the video and subscribing for more content like this in the future. But for now, I will see you guys next time. Peace out, take care, bye-bye.